Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Good evening. My name is Sylvia. This is the infamous Sylvia channel where we do a reenactment of exactly what happened in court. As you guys know, that Mr. Kelly is trending really a lot the last couple of days, and we've been telling the mass media what really happened in court because a couple of us was actually at the trial and we heard everything that happened. We tried to yell, we tried to scream, we tried to tell everyone exactly what was happening. And now all of a sudden Johnny come lately is getting the information and they act like it's something new. But here's what we're get ready to do. We're getting ready to do the reenactment of the actual trial. So you guys can hear for yourself exactly what happened and why we know for a fact that Mr. Kelly was definitely railroaded. There was individuals on the witness stands that lied. There was individuals that didn't was not brought into the case, but they were allowed to testify. There was videos brought into the case where the individual that supposedly was in the tape didn't she got like she supposedly got sick again, but they let the videotape in and she did not have to testify. I thought in a court of law that you have a right to cross-examine your accuser. And that did not happen, but they allowed it. The government did a lot of dirty tactic to get Mr. Kelly. And we're here to tell you the truth. We're here to bring forth the actual truth of what happened. So what we're doing, we're doing the reenactment and we're asking everyone to share this video and let the world know exactly how Mr. Kelly was railroaded. Again, my name is Infamous Sylvia, and I have a few actors, and I will not give you their real name, but I'll give you the position that they're playing in the trial. All right. First, we have our own Jane Doe number 5. Hey, Jane Doe.
Hey,
Next, we'll have the prosecutor, Miss Geddes. Hey, Miss Geddes.
good evening.
And not only now, we have our own Judge Ann Donnelly. Hey, Judge.
Hello.
All right. And I will be playing a couple of different voices as I do all the time. If you hear different voice, I will be playing those voices. Okay. So without further ado, we will begin. This is on August the 23rd. This is the first time Jane Doe number 5 is on the witness stand. So we will go ahead and give you exactly what happened in the court. And we're also going to read the sidebars that actually occurred at court. So without further ado, we're going to get started. One second, please. And those that are following with us, we're on page 765. All right. Are you guys ready? Jane called as witness, having been duly sworn, affirmed, was examined, and testified as followed.
I do.
Please state your name for the record.
Jane.
You may be seated.
All right. Let's just make sure the microphone. Okay. I want to make sure it's working. Okay. So, first thing, speak into the microphone. The second thing is that our court reporters take down everything that you say. So, it's important not to speak too quickly or to speak over whichever lawyer is asking you questions. If there's something that you don't understand or you want to have repeated, just say so. And I have the lawyer rephrase the question. Okay?
Thank you.
All right. Go ahead.
Go ahead. You can take your mask off. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm showing the witness only what has been marked for identification as Government Exhibit 75. Do you recognize what's shown in Government Exhibit 75?
I do.
1 second. Miss Geddes, your line is a little bit scratchy. Can you come closer to the mic? Thank you.
Okay. And who is that?
That is me.
The government offers Government Exhibit 75.
Any objection?
No objection.
Can it?
Who's getting it?
May I voir dire? Sure. But you have to use your microphone. Ma'am, do you have a recollection as to when this picture was taken?
This picture was taken. This is my driver's license.
Okay, thank you.
So no objection.
No objection.
Okay, it's in evidence.
May I publish?
Yes. Government Exhibit 75 was received in evidence. Exhibit published.
And I'm now showing the witness only what's been marked for identification as Government Exhibit 75A. I'm sorry, 75B. Do you see what's shown in 75B?
I do.
Is the name written under the 75B include the same photograph that was just published in Government Exhibit 75?
It does.
And underneath your photograph, is that your true name and nickname?
It is.
The government offers 75B and would ask that 75B be published only to the jury.
Okay.
Exhibit published.
I forgot to ask if there's an objection.
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay.
How old are you today?
I'm 23.
I'm showing the witness what's in evidence is Government Exhibit 1. Everyone can see Government Exhibit 1. Thank you. Do you recognize the individual in Government Exhibit 1?
I do.
Do you personally know that individual?
I do.
Who is that?
That is Robert Kelly, the defendant.
Do you see him in the courtroom today?
I do not.
Can you take a closer look? Do you see him?
No.
James?
I'm sorry. I don't have my glasses, but it is possible for the defendant to stand up.
Could the defendant remove?
No.
He can't remove his mask?
Yes, I see the defendant.
Can you point to him and describe an article of his clothing?
He has a suit on.
What color shirt does he have on?
A black suit.
All right. Indicate the defendant.
How old were you when you met the defendant?
I was 17 years old.
What year was that?
It was 2015.
Have you had sexual contact with the defendant?
I have.
When did you first have sexual contact with the defendant?
When I was 17 years old.
And did you continue to have sexual contact with him for a period of time?
I did.
How long were you with the defendant?
For 5 years.
I want to direct your attention to April 18th of 2015. Do you remember that day?
I do.
Where, if any, where did you go to that evening?
I went to a festival with my parents.
Who was the headliner at the festival?
The defendant.
And was he performing under the name R. Kelly?
He was.
In what city was the concert?
It was in Orlando, Florida.
Did you live in Orlando then?
I did.
Can you keep your voice up? I want to just make sure you are speaking into the microphone.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I did.
And how old were you at the time of the concert?
I was 17.
When is your birthday?
December 30th, 1997.
In April of 2015, when you met the defendant, were you still in high school?
I was.
What year were you?
I was a junior in high school.
And what was the name of the high school that you attended?
Freedom High School.
And was that in Orlando?
Yes.
Do you remember in what section you were seated at the festival where you first saw the defendant?
I was in the C section.
And what, if anything, happened?
I'm sorry. I didn't hear what section?
What section were you in?
A C section.
A C section?
Yes.
What, if anything, happened while you were in the C section?
There were people from his entourage who were giving out wristbands.
And did you receive one of those wristbands?
I did.
What did the wristband allow you to do?
No, the wristband allowed you to go to the pit and also meet and greet after the show.
Did you then go to the pit?
I did.
And where was the pit located in connection with the stage?
It was in front of the A section, directly in front of where the talent would have performed the defendant.
And by talent, you're referring to the defendant?
Yes, I am.
What, if anything, did you then go to the pit?
I did, yes.
What, if anything, did you notice about the defendant while you were in the pit?
He performed majority of his songs to me, and he did show me a lot of attention.
I'm showing the witness only what's been marked for identification as Government Exhibit 248A. Do you recognize 248A?
I do.
What is that?
This is a picture of the defendant grabbing my hand.
Government offers 248A.
Any objection? Was this at the concert you're talking about?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Your Honor, I do object.
Overruled.
May we publish?
Yes.
Whose hand is this right here?
That is my hand with 2 wristbands.
And were those the wristbands that you received from a member of the defendant's entourage that allowed you to go to the pit? Candy?
Objection to the leading.
Overruled.
What?
And whose hand is this right here where my pen is pointing?
That was the defendant's.
Now, did the defendant stay on stage continuously during the show?
He did not.
What happened?
I believe he had breaks, and there were also another point of the show where he performed on another stage.
During the show, what, if any, additional contact did you have with other associates of the defendant?
When he performed his second set at a stage, that was further in the middle of the crowd. Someone from his entourage did come to me, and they gave me a sheet of paper and said, "Don't tell anyone."
Did you take a look at the sheet of paper?
I did.
What was on the sheet of paper?
It was the defendant's name and a phone number.
What was listed? When you said the defendant's name, what did it say?
It said Rob, and it had a number.
Do you remember the telephone number that was written on the piece of paper?
I do.
What was it?
It was 312-925-0880.
What happened after the defendant finished performing at the show?
After the show, it was a meet and greet. However, I was dressed and I wasn't dressed up for the show, so I did not go to the meet and greet. I found my parents after.
And I'm showing the witness only what's been marked for identification is Government Exhibit 245A. Do you recognize what's shown in 245A?
I do.
What is shown in 245A?
It is a picture of me with a pair of black panties.
And when was this photograph taken?
This was the initial date in April at the same show.
Who took the photo?
I took the photo.
Government offers 245A.
Any objection?
None.
All right. That's in evidence. And you can publish it.
Government Exhibit 245A was received in evidence. Exhibit published.
And does this photo reflect what you were wearing to the concert that evening?
It does.
And you testified that you're holding a pair of black panties. Where did you receive those from?
From the defendant.
When did you receive those?
He gave them to me while performing.
And was the defendant performing as part of the tour?
He was.
Do you know the name of the tour that the defendant was performing?
It was his Black Panties tour.
Now, you testified that during the show, you were given a piece of paper with the defendant's name and telephone number on it. What, if anything, did you do with that piece of paper?
I gave the paper to my mom.
And what, if anything else, did you do with the phone number on that piece of paper?
I did text the number.
Did you receive a response from the defendant?
Initially, no, because I hadn't entered the proper number.
You later learned that you had entered an incorrect number.
Yes.
I want to step back a moment. You testified that you were in high school at the time, in your junior year. What's your interest in high school?
Music, and I did a lot of sports.
What, if any, music-related after-school activities did you participate in?
I was taking 3 choir classes at the time, and I was a part of a Patriot Singers, which was basically a group of our best singers, and you had to audition to be a part of it, and it was very selected. And that is something that I took after school. It was mandatory.
How many days a week did Patriot Singers meet?
Monday through Friday.
Every day?
Every single day, yes.
And did you also take any music? Did you take any music-related courses in high school?
I did, yes.
What type of courses did you take?
I took varsity, and I also took a class called, I don't actually remember the specific name of it, but it was a class dedicated to a small group of our students who were working to get scholarships for performance.
At that time, are you okay? At that time, had you earned any money singing?
I had.
How had you earned money?
Outside of my school, I was a performer and I did shows and I would write music. So usually I would get gigs.
And you were paid for some of those gigs?
I was.
What type of music did you want to pursue back then?
R&B.
And what type of music did the defendant perform?
R&B.
You also testified that one of your interests in high school were sports. What type of sports did you participate in?
I participated in track and weightlifting.
I want to turn back to when one of the defendant's associates gave you the defendant's phone number. Were you then interested in the defendant romantically?
I was not.
You testified, though, that you did try to contact him by sending him a text message.
I did.
Why did you try to reach out to the defendant?
Because he was a musician as well, and I felt that any critique would be good critique.
Critique of your own musical skills?
Yes.
How did you eventually get in touch with the defendant?
I eventually had a FaceTime with him because I didn't know if it was necessarily just someone from his entourage who was trying to take advantage of me. And when I did FaceTime him, it was, in fact, him.
Now, at the time when you FaceTime him, and just for the record, can you explain what you mean by FaceTime?
FaceTime is a visual phone call.
Okay. So, was it a way for you to see the caller that you're talking to?
Yes,
Now, at the time when you first FaceTime with the defendant, did you learn whether or not either of your parents, if any, had any contact with the defendant?
at that time I did not.
How were you able to get the defendant's phone number?
Well, when I realized that I didn't have the right number, I did. I happened to be on my mom's phone for something, and I did see she had been texting the defendant.
All right. So, did you learn that your mom had, in fact, been communicating with the defendant by text message?
I did.
And did you have a choice? Did you have a chance to look at some of those text messages?
I did.
Who was the defendant? Who was your mom purporting to be when she was communicating with the defendant?
My mother, she was acting as me.
Now, you said that you did eventually start communicating with the defendant. I think you testified that you FaceTime him.
Yes,
Do you recall what telephone number you were using to communicate with the defendant?
I was using an iPod that I had gifted to my mother because at the time I had an Android.
And did the iPod allow you to do FaceTiming?
It did.
And did you use another telephone to text message and communicate with the defendant?
I did.
What phone is that?
That is the phone that I had set at 17 years old. It was an Android.
I'm showing the witness what's been marked for identification as Government Exhibit 233. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Do you recognize Government Exhibit 233?
I do.
What is it?
It is my phone from high school.
And is that the phone that you were using to communicate with the defendant? Or
It
one of the
was.
phones you were using?
It was.
Government Exhibit offers 233.
No objection.
All right. That's in evidence.
Government Exhibit 233 was received in evidence.
Now, before you met with the government or first met with the government, when did you last see the phone that's in evidence as Government Exhibit 233?
The last time I saw that phone was in Florida before I left my family.
Okay. Do you remember when that was?
It was probably June or July
Of what year?
2015.
And did you use the phone after you left it in Florida with your family?
I did not.
Just wait until the lawyer finishes asking the question before you answer. That way, it's easier for the court reporter, okay? That's all right. Go ahead.
You said that you saw some of the messages from your mom had been exchanging with the defendant. What did you understand at the time that your mom had told the defendant when she was communicating with him by acting as?
To my knowledge, she did tell him that I was a musician and that I was an artist, and she did send him videos of me on YouTube of me performing live.
And when you started to communicate with the defendant, what, if anything, did you and the defendant discuss over the phone and text messages?
Initially, he said I did tell him that I was a musician, and he said that I could come and audition.
What, if anything, did you tell the defendant about your age?
I told the defendant that I was 18.
You were, in fact, 17.
I was.
You mentioned that the defendant told you that you could audition. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Did you arrange? Was the place arranged at a time arranged for you to have an audition with the defendant?
Yes, it was.
Where was that supposed to take place?
At the Dolphin Hotel.
Where is the Dolphin Hotel?
It's on Disney's property in Kissimmee.
Is that near Orlando where you live?
Yes,
And whose idea is it to meet at the Dolphin Hotel?
it was the defendant's
Where did you next see the defendant?
at the Dolphin Hotel.
I'm showing the witness only what's been marked for identification is Government Exhibit 518A, E, and G. This is 518A, 518E, and 518G. Do you recognize what's been shown in these three exhibits?
I do.
What is that?
That is the hotel that the defendant, had asked me to meet him at.
And are those fair and accurate photos of the hotel and how it appeared when you met him there?
It is, yes.
The government exhibit offers 518A, E, and G.
No objection.
All right. Those are in evidence.
Government Exhibit 518A, E, and G were received in evidence.
She gets someone.
I'm going to put 518E
Hold on.
on the screen. Now, do you recall how long it was between the festival where you first saw the defendant and when you went to the Dolphin Hotel for an audition with the defendant?
It was possibly a few days. He did say that he usually stayed there after for a few days.
And when you say he, who are you referring to?
The defendant.
Do you remember what you did before you went to the Dolphin Hotel that day?
I was at school.
And where did you go after school?
After Patriot Singers, I didn't go to any sports activities. I went to my friend Malak's house and I got dressed. Stop.
Who can I have that read back?
Whose house?
Malak. She's a friend of mine that I attended high school with.
Okay.
Could I have that entire answer read?
Sure.
Whereupon the record was read.
What was the name again?
Malak.
Malak?
Malak.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
You testified that you were at your friend's house and then you got dressed. Did you then go to the Dolphin Hotel?
I did.
Who, if anyone, came with you to the Dolphin Hotel?
No one.
Who, if any, knew that you were going to meet the defendant at the hotel that day?
My family.
Do you remember what you wore when you went to meet the defendant that day?
Yes, I do. I wore a black kid knee heels and a pair of skinny jeans, dark blue, and a crop top that had mesh at the top.
I'm sorry. I didn't get the top.
It had mesh on the top.
Okay, thank you.
I'm showing the witness only what's been marked for identification 247A for the witness only. Do you recognize what's shown at 247A?
I do.
What is that?
That is me prior to meeting the defendant.
And who took that photograph?
I took at that picture.
And did you take it the day that you were going to the Dolphin Hotel to meet the defendant?
I did.
Government offers 247A.
No objection.
Okay. That's in evidence.
Government Exhibit 247A was received in evidence.
Now, you testified you went to the Dolphin Hotel to meet the defendant. When did you first see him at the Dolphin Hotel?
When I drove there, he told me that it would be a black Sprinter out front of the hotel and to get inside.
Did you see the black Sprinter when you arrived?
I did.
And when you say black Sprinter, what are you referring to?
A Mercedes-Benz black Sprinter van.
And who, if anyone, did you then go inside the Sprinter?
I did.
Who, if anyone, was inside the Sprinter when you went there?
The defendant.
Anyone else that you saw?
No.
Where was the Sprinter van parked?
It was parked in front of the hotel.
Was it parked in a parking lot or in another location?
No, it was parked directly in front of the roundabout.
In front of the Dolphin Hotel?
Yes.
What happened when you went inside the Sprinter?
When I got inside the Sprinter, me and the defendant talked.
Do you remember what you talked about that day?
We, of course, we talked about me auditioning and he had asked me a few questions.
Do you remember what he asked you?
Yes.
What did he ask you?
He had asked me to sit on his lap.
How did you respond when the defendant asked you to sit on his lap?
I asked him if he was sure.
What did the defendant say?
He said he is.
Did you then sit on the defendant's lap?
I did.
What else, if anything, did he ask you when you were inside the Sprinter?
He then asked me for a kiss.
How did you respond to that?
I didn't necessarily want to, and so he said just a small pop kiss.
Now, you used the term pop kiss. Was that your word or his word?
His word.
What did you do?
I did kiss. I said, "Are you sure?"
And what happened?
And then he said yes, and then I gave him a pop kiss.
Now, what do you mean by a pop kiss?
Meaning that in terms, it didn't need to have any tongue. It was just an innocent pop kiss.
Approximately how long did you stay in the Sprinter with the defendant?
Not long, probably about 5 to 7 minutes.
And what, if anything, did you do after you were in the Sprinter?
Someone knocked on the outside of the Sprinter, and it was time for us to go upstairs.
Did you see who knocked on the Sprinter van?
I did not because their back was turned.
So what did you do when there was a knock and you were told that it was okay to go upstairs or time to go upstairs?
I just followed the defendant up
Where did you go next?
to the hotel room.
And was that the hotel room inside the Dolphin?
It was, yes.
Was anyone else inside the hotel room when you went there?
No.
You testified a minute ago that someone knocked and said it was time to go. What did you understand that individual to mean by that?
Objection.
Overruled.
It just meant that the keys were ready and that we could go upstairs.
The keys for the hotel room?
Yes.
What, if anything, happened once you were inside the hotel room at the Dolphin Hotel?
When we were upstairs, the defendant took a cigar out of his mouth and he expressed to me that before I can audition, that he needed to come.
And by come, what do you mean?
He needed to ejaculate.
What, if anything, was the defendant carrying when you went into the hotel room?
He had a backpack.
And what, if anything, did you bring? Did you bring your phone with you to the Dolphin Hotel?
I did, yes.
What, if anything, did you do with your phone once you were in the hotel room?
When I got upstairs, he told me to turn the phone off because people sometimes tries to record him.
Did you turn your phone off?
I did, yes.
You said that the defendant said he needed to ejaculate. How did you respond to that?
I was against it.
What did you say to him?
I told him I did not come to please him and that I was coming for an audition.
What did he say?
And he continued to persist and told me to I didn't have to do anything, just to take off my clothes.
How did you respond to that?
I then took off my clothes.
What happened after that?
He then asked me, he persisted to have sex, and I told him that I hadn't shaved.
I'm sorry. When you said he persisted to have sex, what do you mean?
Like, he persisted to continuously try and peer pressure me to have sex with him.
And you testified that you said you hadn't shaved.
Yes,
How did the defendant respond to that?
he said even better.
What, if anything, else did you say?
I told him that he persisted again, and I told him that I was sweaty from sports, even though I hadn't attended sports. And his response to that was that there was a shower in the room.
What did you do?
I continued to deny and decline, and so then he told me to just walk back and forth and asked if he could give me a oral sex and
You said that he asked you to walk back and forth.
uh-huh.
What did you understand the defendant to mean by that?
I just thought that would be better than having sex with the defendant.
Objection.
Overruled.
Did you then walk back and forth for the defendant?
I did, yes.
What, if anything, were you wearing at the time?
I just had on panties and the bra that I had on.
And you mentioned that the defendants also asked you about oral sex.
He did.
Do you remember the words in effect that the defendant used?
Yes.
What did he say?
After that, he said before I could sing that he needed to come again and that if I couldn't have sex with him, to at least just let him lick my butt.
And what, if anything, did he promise in return?
To allow me to audition and take care of me for life.
He said that if you agreed to that, that he would take care of you for the rest of your life or for your life.
Yes, he did.
What did you say?
I didn't necessarily care for that. I just wanted to sing.
So what happened after that?
After that, he then laid down. I got on top of him backwards, and he did lick my butt. And he had his backpack beside him and a few iPads that he had taken out.
You mentioned that the defendant had some iPads. What, if anything, did you notice about the iPads then?
I didn't notice anything because I was backwards, so I couldn't necessarily see what was visible on them.
But you saw defendant remove iPad or two?
Yes, I did.
What happened next?
There was a knock on the door.
What, if anything, did the defendant do when you heard that knock on the door?
He got up and he went to the door and he saw that it was officers at the door. He then told me to go to the washroom and put my clothes on. He asked me if I was 18 and I said yes.
What was the defendant's demeanor when he saw the officers at the hotel room door?
He was very anxious and scared.
Objection.
Overruled. What led you to the conclusion that he was anxious and scared?
Because after he looked through the peephole, he made me go into the restroom immediately and told me to get dressed. He said, "Are you 18?" I said yes. And he said, "Don't lie to me." And I said yes.
Next,
Wow.
next question.
Did you then go to the restroom and get dressed?
I did yes.
And then did you what did the defendant do?
He opened the door and he spoke to them and he was more relaxed.
And what, if anything, did you do when the officers were at the door and speaking with the defendant?
Once I came out of the restroom, I then saw them and they had spoken to me and said that they had been looking for me because my parents could not get in touch with me.
How did you respond?
I told them that I had put my phone in the airplane mode, and as I said that, I was turning on my phone. And then I had to call my parents in front of them and let them know that I was okay. And I also had to show them my ID.
And what, if anything, did you say about your age?
I did say that I was 18.
What, if anything, else did the officers say during that encounter?
Basically, after they did check my ID, they left and they had given the defendant a card and said anytime he was in Orlando and needed security to let them know.
Now, you said that you showed the officers your identification, your ID. Did you show them your true identification?
Yes, it was my driver's license.
And based on your identification, how old were you? How
17
old
years
did it how old did it show that you were?
17 years old.
Did the officers then leave?
They did, yes.
What happened after the officers left?
The defendant wanted to proceed because he still needed to come.
And by come, do you mean ejaculate?
Yes, I do.
What happened then?
We persisted, and then he made me get back on top of him backwards, and then he ejaculated.
What happened after the defendant ejaculated?
After he ejaculated, I was able to put back on my clothes, and he did allow me to sing.
What did you sing for the defendant?
I sung Mama Knows Best by Jessie J, which was a ballad.
How, if at all, did the defendant react after you sang for him?
He seemed very impressed and said that I had a great voice and that I had a lot of potential.
What, if any, future plans did you make with the defendant that evening?
He did say that he would like to see me again and teach me a few techniques.
You testified earlier that when you saw the defendant perform at the concert in Orlando, he was performing as part of a tour. Did you learn what types of venues the defendant was performing at as part of that tour?
Yes, it was stadium shows and a lot of outdoor festivals
And where were those shows?
in multiple cities and states.
Throughout the country?
Yes.
Now, at either the Dolphin Hotel, where you first met the defendant, or in a few days thereafter, what, if any, plans did you make with the defendant?
He had to leave, and that once he left, he would want me to come out to the next city that he was in.
And did you continue to communicate with him by phone?
I did, yes.
How?
Via text message and phone calls.
After you met with the defendant at the Dolphin Hotel, did your mother continue to text the defendant pretending to be you, as far as you know, at least?
She did not know.
Now, in the days after you met the defendant, do you recall sending the defendant a video?
I do.
What video did you send the defendant?
The defendant had asked me to send a video of me singing in my underwear and bra.
And did you do that?
I did, yes.
Did you, what, if any, other videos did you send to the defendant?
I sent him videos of me dancing, singing, and more videos of me performing.
Did you send the defendant any professional videos of you?
I did, yes.
What did you send him?
I sent him my unreleased single that my parents had paid for, and I had asked him for his input and his opinion.
What was the name of the unreleased single that you had sent to him?
The single was called Liar Liar.
And why did you send it to the defendant?
Well, it was going to be my first single release, and I had just got back the final edit, and I genuinely wanted his input.
And who had, you said you performed on that video. Is that correct?
It was more like a music video, so it was like me and my friends from high school. It was shot professionally.
And how did the defendant respond to that video after you sent it to him?
He liked it. He said that he did like it and that it was cute and that it wasn't, too grown or too sexy and that he liked it.
Now, you said that the defendant proposed seeing you again at another stop on his tour. Is that right?
He did, yes.
Did the defendant explain to you how you will get to the next stop on his tour?
Yes.
What did he tell you?
He had given me a number and he told me specifically what to text to that number.
And what did he tell you to text to that particular number?
He told me to say Mr. Kelly said to get me whatever city that he was in at the time.
Do you recall the first state that you traveled to see the defendant?
I do not.
I'm showing the witness only what's been marked for identification as Government Exhibit 233C. Does reviewing 233C refresh your recollection as to where you first traveled to see the defendant?
It does, yes.
What state did you travel to?
I traveled to California,
In what city in California?
Los Angeles.
Now, approximately, when did you take this trip?
I took this trip on the 28th of April.
And was that in 2015?
Yes.
Were you still finishing your junior year in high school when you took this trip?
Yes, I was.
Did you take more trips to see the defendant on his tour?
I did, yes.
While you were still in your junior year of high school, generally speaking, what days would you travel to see the defendant?
I would usually travel the weekend, but sometimes it would go over and lead into a Monday.
And would you miss days of school as a result of this?
Yes, I would.
You testified that the defendant told you to send a text message to someone to arrange travel. Who do you understand you were sending a text message to?
It was an assistant.
An assistant who worked for the defendant?
Yes.
Did you learn her name?
Her name was Cheryl Mack.
I'm showing the witness only what's been marked for identification as Government Exhibit 38. Do you recognize Government Exhibit 38?
I do, yes.
What is Government Exhibit 38?
That was his assistant in the year 2015.
What was her name?
Cheryl Mack.
Government offers Government Exhibit 38.
Any objection?
None.
I just don't recall. Did you offer the other exhibit as well?
I'm about to.
Do you object?
No.
Okay. That's in evidence also.
Government Exhibit 233C was received in evidence. Government Exhibit 38 was received in evidence.
Thank you. So what, if any, information did you provide to Cheryl Mack when you first sent her a text message asking to arrange your travel?
I said to her the city that I was currently departing from, and I sent her my birth certificate.
And who did you understand would pay for your travel to Los Angeles to see the defendant?
I'm sorry. Birth date, sorry. The defendant.
You testified that you provided your name and your birthday, correct?
Yes, I did.
Did you provide your true birthday?
Yes, I did.
Showing that you were 17 years old?
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, may we publish to the jury only Government Exhibit 233C, which is now in evidence?
Judge?
Yes.
Generally speaking, what is shown in 233C?
It is me letting her know what city I am leaving from, which is Orlando, and then me sending her my birthday stating 12/30/1997.
Are these text messages that you exchanged with Cheryl Mack?
Yes, it is.
And what are the dates of the text messages?
It is April the 28th, 2015.
Without reading your name in line 6802, can you read that first line where my pen is pointing?
Yes. Mr. Kelly said to get me to LA, an early flight. My name is Jane. I'm in Orlando, Florida currently.
And did Cheryl Mack then arrange for you to travel from Orlando, Florida to Los Angeles the following day?
Yes, she did.
I'm showing the witness what's been marked for identification as Government Exhibit 217. Do you recognize 217?
I do.
The government offers 217 if there's no objection.
No objection. I just want to make sure. Okay, thank you.
All right, that's in evidence.
Government Exhibit 217 was received in evidence.
May we publish to the jury only?
Yes.
Exhibit published to the jury only.
What is Government Exhibit 217?
I think I'm lost.
15.
Page 803. 15.
15. Okay. It is a flight ticket from Orlando to LA.
And is this for a flight on April 29th of 2015?
It is, yes.
And is this for yourself?
Yes.
And was this ticket booked by the defendant's assistant, Cheryl Mack?
Yes, it was.
Did you see the defendant when you arrived in LA, like during that trip?
I did, yes.
Now, do you remember where you first saw him during the trip?
No.
So even if you don't remember where you first saw him, where do you recall seeing him while you were in LA?
In the hotel and at his shows.
Did you attend his show in LA while you were there?
I did, yes.
And you said you also saw him at the hotel.
Yes.
What happened at the hotel room where you saw the defendant?
He did express that he wanted to teach me a few techniques. However, he needed to ejaculate again before doing anything.
And when you say that he said he wanted to teach you a few techniques, what type of techniques did you understand him to be referring to?
Musical techniques to help me better myself.
As a singer?
Yes.
What happened after he said that?
After he said that, we did the same thing, and he did, in fact, give me a few techniques.
And when you said you did the same thing, what are you referring to?
Oral sex. He needed to ejaculate before anything.
Did he give you oral sex?
Oh.
Objection.
Overruled.
I don't remember. I believe, well, like eating my butt, yes.
Oh.
Are you saying that you don't remember where specifically he gave you oral sex on what part of your body?
No, I thought you were asking like vaginally, but yes, he did give me oral sex.
Your Honor, may we approach briefly, very briefly?
Sure. Do you need the court reporter?
Hopefully not.
Well, let's have her come over just in case.
Okay. Sidebar held outside the hearing of the jury. Continue to... Okay. The following sidebar took place outside the hearing of the jury. Your Honor, I don't understand. I'm objecting to questions that I think are leading. This is a very crucial witness, and I think we should be getting her testimony, and the court is overruling those objections. I don't want to continue to object if you're going to overrule them, but I just need to know the rationale.
Well, my general policy is I don't look back on rulings, but I will sure explain it to you. She said that the same thing happened this time as had happened before. And the follow-up was somewhat leading, but it was based on her answer that the same thing had happened before, which she had described earlier. So while it was technically leading, it wasn't leading in a way that was unfair. That's the basics for my ruling. And I don't, as a practical matter, I don't understand you to be doing this either. It's that every technical violation requires some kind of a curative instruction. This witness is pretty much describing things that happen. If there's a real leading going on, I will sustain it, as I think I've done before. But I think a little bit of leading to move it along when it's already been established what she was talking about is not a problem. So that's what I'm doing.
The last question was not the one that I was really bothered by in terms of the court's ruling. It was the question before that. I just think that there is some crucial things in terms of
What was this topic?
I'm old, Judge. I don't remember the topic.
Not as old as I am. And I remember the topic. It was describing the nature of the sexual contact. And that's specifically why I didn't sustain the objection, because she said the same thing happened in this instance as happened in Florida. And so that, to me, is not the kind of thing that requires any kind of a curative instruction.
I wouldn't want one.
All right. So that's the basis for the rulings. So why don't we move on?
Okay. Just one note along this line. The witness was with the defendant for 5 years. I would like to be able to leave, and at least in part, so that we're not here until the end of time.
First of all, she wasn't with him 5 years. I'm sorry for interrupting that. Sorry. That was Sylvia's note. Not, I apologize. Um, just so that we're clear, I don't have any problems with setting time, leading to set time, but it's just when it comes to details.
That's fine.
I think we're all on the same page. Obviously, what color was the car? What street did you drive on? Those kinds of things do not do.
Are you going to get through this witness today in terms of your direct?
I sure hope so.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you, Your Honor. Sidebar concluded.
Okay, next question, please.
While you are with the defendant in Los Angeles, what, if anything, else did the defendant describe to you?
Jane?
Pertaining to what?
Do you recall the nature of your communication with the defendant while you were with him in Los Angeles, aside from the sexual contact that you just described?
Yes.
What were they about?
Musical conversations
And go ahead.
in which he was like teaching me techniques.
And what, if any, guidelines did the defendant describe to you about the time that you might spend with the defendant?
I don't understand what you're asking me.
I'd like to show the witness only what's been marked for identification as 233D. Does reading 233D refresh your recollection about other topics that the defendant raised while you were with him in Los Angeles?
It does, yes.
What do you recall the defendant telling you?
He had mentioned rules.
And what did you understand? What are you referring to by rule?
It was a protocol that he went by and rules that I would have to abide by while in his presence.
What, if any, rules do you recall the defendant telling you?
Based off this piece of evidence, my wardrobe and how I dressed.
And what did you understand the defendant to be telling you about your wardrobe?
I had worn black tights, a brown shirt, and he did not like that.
Objection.
Overruled. What makes you say that?
Because he asked me to change, and that was the beginning of the very first rule that he had addressed me about.
What did he want you to change into? Did he describe the type of clothes that he preferred you to be wearing?
Something that didn't that's loose and baggy preferably.
What, if any, other rules do you recall the defendant sharing with you on that first trip to California?
I don't recall any.
While you were in the while you were at while you were in the hotel room that you were staying, was the defendant always with you?
No, he was not.
What, if anything, did you do when the defendant was not with you in the hotel room?
I was just waiting in the hotel room.
Why did you stay in the hotel room?
He he had expressed to me to let him know anytime I did leave or where I was going.
What, if anything, did you understand the defendant wanted you to call him?
He wanted me to call him daddy.
The government, showing the witness again, what's been marked for identification is 233D, which you were just previously looking at. Do you recognize what that is?
Yes, I do.
Generally, what is it?
Uh, this is a conversation between me and my mother.
And what is the date of that conversation?
April the 29th, 2015.
And are these text messages between your mother and you?
Um,
Two.
I'm telling her that he is talking about rules and that he told me to change.
On 8/13.
812.
8/13, line 2.
That's we're at 812.
What line?
812. One, right?
And you said any objection? I said no object. No.
Yes.
Number 6.
She
Court
didn't do four. She didn't do four.
can
She didn't do four.
About 4.
the government offers 233D.
Any objection?
No objection.
Okay.
No. No.
That will be in evidence.
May we publish?
Yes.
Exhibit
All right.
published.
And where my pen is that where you were telling your mom that the defendant was talking about the rules?
Yes.
I'm showing the witness only what's been marked for identification is 233E. Do
Mm,
you recognize what's shown in 233E?
I do, yes.
Generally speaking, what are those?
This is a conversation between me and my mother.
And what is the date of that conversation?
April the 29th, 2015.
And are these text messages between you, your mother, and you?
Yes, they are.
And what are you discussing with your mother in these text communications?
I'm expressing to her that he has me in sweats.
The government offers 233. One question. Who are you referring to when you say he has you in sweats?
The defendant.
The government offers 233E.
Any objection?
No.
Okay, that's in evidence.
May we publish?
Government exhibit. I'm sorry. Government exhibit 233E was received in evidence.
May we publish?
Yes.
Exhibit published.
And can you read the text message where my pen is pointing?
Yeah. Yes. But he got me in sweats.
And who wrote that text message?
I sent that text message to my mother.
About the defendant?
Yes.
And now, can you read the message at the bottom?
He ain't like my tights showing my figure.
And again, who are you referring to?
The defendant.
Do you recall what, if anything, the defendant told you about the value of your trip to Los Angeles?
No.
I am showing the witness only what's been marked for identification as 233F. Generally, what is shown in 233F?
It is basically me texting my mother about a conversation that I had with the defendant.
And what is the date of the text messages sent to your mom?
May the 1st, 2015.
The government offers 233F.
No objection.
All right, in evidence.
Government Exhibit 233F was received in evidence.
May we publish?
Yes.
Exhibit published.
Can you just read the text message at the bottom, please?
He just texted me. He said, although he isn't with me, this wasn't a waste of a trip. He said I should take this time to try and ease my mind and soak in everything he's been telling me. So when I actually go into this industry, I have a mature frame already.
And the he in that text message, who are you referring to?
The defendant.
And when you reference this industry, what industry are you referring to?
The music industry.
And finally, when you said, although it isn't with me, this wasn't a waste of a trip, what trip are you referring to?
Me going out to LA.
Now, you initially flew to Los Angeles. Did you stay in Los Angeles or did you visit other cities during that trip?
I ended up getting stuck out there and going to multiple cities with the defendant.
How did you travel from city to city with the defendant?
He had his assistant book flights and the entire itinerary.
Do you know how the defendant traveled between cities?
He did express that he did not fly because of his fear and that he traveled by tour bus.
Do you remember where you went after Los Angeles?
I do not.
I'm showing the witness what's been marked for identification as 233Q. Do you recognize 233Q?
I do, yes.
What is shown there?
It's a conversation between me and his assistant, Cheryl, and I'm telling her exactly what the defendant told me to say.
Which was what?
That Mr. Kelly said to get me to Stockton, California.
And what is the date? Are those text messages between you and Cheryl Mack?
Yes.
What are the dates of those text messages?
May 1st, 2015.
The government offers 233Q.
Any objection?
None.
All right, that's in evidence.
Government Exhibit 233Q was received in evidence.
After reviewing 233Q, do you recall where you went after Los Angeles?
To Stockton, California.
And who made those travel reservations for you?
His assistant, Cheryl.
Now, do you remember where you stayed in Stockton?
I do not.
I'm showing you what's been marked for identification as 233R. What is 233R?
It is Cheryl sending me an itinerary of where I would be staying.
In Stockton, California?
Yes.
Government offers 233R.
Any objection?
No.
That's in evidence.
Government Exhibit 233R was received in evidence.
Where were you going to be staying? Where were you going to be staying in Stockton?
At the Residence Inn.
Now, do you remember what you did once you arrived in Stockton, California?
I do not.
Why were you in Stockton, California?
I was there to see the defendant for a show that he had.
And did you go to the show in Stockton, California?
I did, yes.
I'm showing you what's been marked for identification as Government Exhibit 220, the witness only. Do you recognize 220?
Yes, I do.
What is that?
That is a ticket stub of the show that I went to in California, Stockton.
And is that also dated May 1st of 2015?
It is, yes.
The government offers 220.
No objection.
Okay, that's in evidence.
Government Exhibit 220 was receiving evidence.
Now, after the concerts, do you recall seeing the defendant that evening?
I do, yes.
And do you remember what your hotel room looked like where you stayed in Stockton?
Yes, I do. I remember that the room was a suite that had a fireplace in it.
And what, if anything, do you recall happening? Did you see the defendant at the hotel room
I did, yes.
in Stockton, California?
I did, yes.
What do you recall happening in the hotel room in Stockton, California?
This was the first time that I had vaginal penetration with the defendant.
And by vaginal penetration, what do you mean?
We had sexual intercourse.
Was the defendant's penis inside your vagina?
Yes, it was.
And prior, or what, if any, type of contraception did the defendant use to your knowledge?
He used one. None. He used none.
And what, if anything, did the defendant tell you about any sexually transmitted diseases that he had?
He never mentioned anything of that nature to me.
Now, how is it that you recall that was the first time that you had sexual intercourse with the defendant?
I remember because the room that we were in, it had a kitchenette in it and it had a fireplace. And I had never been in a room that had a fireplace before in a suite.
Do you recall what city you traveled to after Stockton, California?
I believe we went to Las Vegas.
And I'm showing you government exhibit 253A. Do you recognize 253A?
I do.
What is that?
It is my flight confirmation is Sacramento.
And does it show? So I'm sorry. Can you say what the flight travel plan was there?
Yeah, it was me departing and going to Las Vegas. Yes.
So leaving Sacramento and going to Las Vegas?
Yes.
And who arranged this travel for you?
The defendant's assistant.
Was that Cheryl Mack?
Yes, it was.
The government offers 253A and asks that it be published to the jury only, please.
No objection.
Okay, that's in evidence.
Government's Exhibit 253A was receiving evidence. Exhibit published to the jury only.
Now, do you remember the hotel that you were staying in when you got to Las Vegas?
Yes, I do.
What hotel was that?
I was staying at the Mandalay Bay.
And do you recall what you did the first evening on May the 2nd of 2015 when you arrived in Las Vegas?
Yes, I wanted to go shopping and get food.
And did you try to go shopping?
I did, yes.
What did you do?
I believe I had text his assistant asking where the nearest mall was.
And when you say his assistant, who are you referring to?
Cheryl.
The defendant's assistant?
Yes.
And how did the defendant's assistant respond when you asked for the nearest mall?
She asked me had I let him know that I was leaving my room.
And by letting him know, what him are you referring to?
The defendant.
How did you respond?
I told her no, I hadn't.
Do you recall how the defendant's assistant responded when you said you had not told the defendant what you planned to go shopping?
I do not.
All right. I want to start by showing you Government Exhibit 233I. Do you recognize 233I?
Yes, I do.
What is that?
This is a text message that I sent to my mother.
On what date?
May the 3rd, 2015.
The government offers 233I.
No objection.
That's in evidence.
The government exhibit 233I was received in evidence.
Can we publish, please?
Yes.
Exhibit published.
Can you read the text message that you sent to your mom?
Yes, it says everyone having fun, and Kel said do not leave the room.
Who's Kel?
The defendant.
Is that a nickname for the defendant?
Yes.
I'm showing. And what are you referring to when you said Kel said do not leave that room?
My hotel room, meaning I could not leave.
And who told you you couldn't leave?
The defendant.
I am showing the witness only what's been marked for identification as 233J. I'm sorry. I'm showing the witness only what's been marked as 233G. Do you recognize 233G?
Yes.
What is shown in 233G?
This is a conversation between me and his assistant, Cheryl.
And what is the conversation about?
Me wanting to go to the mall.
Is this the conversation you were just describing a moment ago?
Yes, it is.
The government offers 233G.
No objection.
That's in evidence.
Government's exhibit 233G was received in evidence.
May we publish?
Yes.
Exhibit published.
Can you read to the jury the text in corresponding to this entry 5837?
It says, read the text before it or after it.
You could just read that first text, 5837, right over here.
It says, trying to figure it out. Mr. Kelly, is Mr. Kelly okay with you going out of your room? It's very hectic out.
Now, who wrote that text message?
His assistant,
Which assistant?
Cheryl.
Cheryl Mack?
Yes.
And how did you respond in the text message? Can you read that aloud?
I said, I didn't ask him if you can't get it, it's fine. I'll just chill inside because the taxi lines are hectic. Thank you for the help.
And is there a response from Miss Mack?
Yes.
What did she say?
She says, oh, okay, yeah. We will need to make sure it's okay. It's very, very hectic. I can get McDonald's to you, no problem.
And when Cheryl Mack wrote, we will need to make sure it's okay, what did you understand her to mean by that?
She would have needed to make sure with the defendant before I could leave my room.
Who, if anyone else, do you recall meeting when you were in Las Vegas?
I remember meeting a young woman who he said was a friend of his.
Do you remember her nickname?
Yes, Juice.
Where did you meet Juice?
I met Juice in Las Vegas.
And do you remember where in Las Vegas?
Yes, I believe I was. He had told me to come down to the lobby, and that it was when initially met her. She was already down there.
And what, if anything, did you and Juice do together when you met her?
We went shopping.
And do you recall what you did the night before you went shopping?
Yes, we went to his show together.
And who are you referring to when you say we there?
Defendant.
I'm sorry, but who went to the show together?
Me and Juice.
And what, if anything, did you say to you when you went to the concert together?
When she had come to knock on my room door, she saw my outfit and she asked me if I really wanted to wear that and if I felt I needed to change.
And what did you understand her to be telling you?
To change my wardrobe of what I had on.
Did you understand what she would have preferred you to have worn or what she?
Objection.
Sustained. Sustained.
I am showing the witness what's been marked for identification as Government Exhibit 221. Do you recognize 221?
Yes, I do.
What is that?
This is a ticket stub from his show in Las Vegas.
Is that the concert that you attended with Juice?
Yes, it is.
The government offers 221.
No objection.
Okay, that's in evidence.
Government Exhibit 221 was received in evidence.
Now, you said that the following day you went shopping with Juice. Do you recall where you went shopping?
It was a mall in the hotel, so we didn't go far.
And who, if anyone, did you see while you went shopping?
We actually ended up meeting up with the defendant while shopping.
And what did you do after shopping?
I then went back to my hotel room.
Who, if anyone, was in the hotel room when you went back there?
Juice came back to my hotel room with me.
And at some point, was there anyone else in your hotel room?
Yes, the defendant then came hours later.
And what happened when the defendant came into your hotel?
I had been texting him asking if Juice could leave because she was just sleeping and if she can go back to her own hotel room. And
How did the defendant respond?
he actually said that he wanted to come and he wanted to have sex.
And what did you do?
I told him I declined because Juice was still in the room and I told him it was something I was not comfortable with.
And so, where were you and the defendant in the room?
We were on the side of the bed and Juice was sitting at a couch sleeping.
And so, what happened next?
He told me it wasn't that big of a deal and that she would sleep and that it would be basically be fast.
What happened?
And then we had vaginal intercourse.
And what, if anything, did you do while you were engaged in sexual activity with the defendant?
She had her back towards us and she didn't do anything.
What happened after that?
After he had come, he said, "See, I told you." And then he called Juice's name and told her to go to her hotel room and she
Yeah,
left.
you have some interference. I don't know what that is.
That wasn't me.
It's in your phone. Do you have something around your neck?
Me?
Hmm.
No, that's not me.
It's not me.
It's not
Okay.
there no more. Okay.
And Juice left the hotel room?
Yes.
And that trip to California that you just described, was that all while you were 17 years old?
Yes, it was.
While you were in your junior year of high school, did you see the defendant again in Florida?
Yes, I did.
Where did you see him? Where in Florida?
I saw him in Jacksonville.
Why were you in Jacksonville?
I was actually in Key West because I had a show that was not far from there.
And by show, what do you mean?
I had my own performance that I was doing for a breast cancer awareness.
What did you do? So, how did you end up meeting the defendant in Jacksonville?
My show actually ended a lot earlier than it anticipated, and because he was in Jacksonville, I did want to surprise him and tell him how well my show went.
Who, if anyone, were with you?
I was with my mother.
By the way, what, if anything, did the defendant ask you to do at your show?
He told me to send him pictures and videos of me performing.
I am showing the witness only what's been marked for identification is 233M. Do you recognize 233M?
Yes, I do.
What is that?
It is a conversation between me and my mother.
And what are you talking about?
I'm basically saying he had wanted someone to record my show and that he said good luck.
And when you say he, who are you referring to?
The defendant.
And what was the date of this conversation?
May 8th, 2015.
The government offers 233M. Can
Can
No
I?
objection.
That's in evidence.
and may we publish?
Yes.
Can you read the last text message on the bottom? And first let the jury know who wrote that text message.
I wrote that text message. It says, just was asking how my day went and he can't wait to see me and good luck tonight. He wants someone to record it so I can send it to him and stuff like that.
And again, who are you referring to in that text message?
The defendant.
You may have already said this, but who were you with when you were in Jacksonville initially?
I was with my mother.
And do you remember where in Jacksonville you and your mom went?
I remember that he was staying at the Omni.
I don't know what's
Is that
going on with. Yeah,
I
I
don't know
don't know
that.
what's going on. There's
That's
some
not me.
interruption.
I only hear it when Jane is talking. So I'm not.
Yeah, that's the only time
It's me? Okay.
Yes,
You want me to come in and go out?
yes, please.
Okay.
Okay, everyone, we're just taking an intermission for a second because there's some interference. 1 second.
It's
Okay, let's
better
try.
now?
Yes, thank you.
No,
I
it's still
still hear
doing
it.
it.
I still hear it. Do you have a headphone on?
I actually do.
You do?
Now I do.
Okay, are you moving something? Is there something like rubbing against your
I'm not
clothes?
moving anything. Let me see. Hold on.
Guys, we apologize. I wanted to be clear so you guys can hear it clearly.
How late are we reading?
It's okay?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So where we
I
at?
still hear it.
See, I hear it again.
Yeah, I still hear it. Well, you know what? Let's just end it right here because it's 10 p.m. and I don't want to drag
Okay.
this too much longer. So we'll continue tomorrow where we left off, guys. Page 832. What line are we on? Let's start from line 1, okay? 832.
Okay.
33 line 1.
833 line 1. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys. Everyone, thank you so much. You guys have a good night, and we'll continue this tomorrow. Night, night.